Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for another interview with Marketing Management and Money. And today we have George Kelly with us, owner of Keys on Main. It is a piano bar that is fabulous. If you've ever heard of it or been there, count yourself lucky. It is an incredible place to go and get some stellar entertainment.
But more importantly than the fact that his establishment is pretty awesome is his business experience. And George, we're going to give you a chance to introduce yourself, but we also want to talk about you've been through kind of a wild ride recently, and this is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners. The global pandemic with COVID has really altered the way that you do business, and so we're going to get into that and how that has affected your business and some of the crazy nuances that sort of sprung out of that. But before we get into all of that, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, let our listeners know a little bit about you and your business.
So, my name is George Kelly. I'm the owner of Keys on Main, which is a dueling piano bar in Salt Lake City. We have a couple more locations, but the original flagship location was started in Salt Lake in about 2008. And if you've never been to a dueling piano bar, it's kind of a fun concept. We just have two grand pianos facing each other on stage, and two performers who are singing and playing popular hits, and the whole show is all request. So every song that's played, the audience members get to ask for it, and they typically come up with a tip on top, and we play all requests all night long. It's really energetic. It's kind of like a rock concert on pianos is what I like to tell people. It's not like a lounge piano bar act. It's not, brandy snifters and that kind of thing. It's lights, it's video walls. It's like going to a small rock concert put on by two baby grand pianos.
And I was going to say, the first time that I was able to see your show live, it really kind of shocked me because it's so much more entertaining. I mean, when I was thinking piano, I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to play some some like David Lawns or something like this, and when they really start getting into it and the dueling part, it really is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And dueling pianos is not like a new concept, and I certainly didn't invent it. We just kind of refreshed it, I'll say. It's been around since the 80s, Pat O'Brien's out in New Orleans. And the first dueling piano show I saw was the bar at Times Square in Las Vegas.
Oh, nice.
At the New York Casino. I saw that show when I was 18, a senior in high school. I didn't even play the piano yet. I was just, a fresh senior with a bit of a voice. Was pursuing music and singing as a career, and I saw these guys just wailing out Billy Joel and Elton John, and the crowd was going crazy, and people, sloshing drinks next to each other, looking like they're having the best time of their lives. And I went away from that going, I think I need to learn how to play the piano because that looks like a riot, And I never set out to make it a career. I just thought it would be fun to be that guy at a house party that could sit down at the piano and play a couple of tunes and have everybody, sing along.
Right.
So, so I went home and I picked up a book called How to Fake Piano from a Fake Book. And I learned how to improvise using chords and just kind of picked up the theory of music. So even today, I'm not really good at sight reading sheet music. You can put Beethoven and Bach in front of me and I'll be like, give me a month and some time to do my homework and I'll play it for you. But I play by ear and just really more of a pop piano player, rock piano player than I am a classical player.
Sure. Now, but you were able to convert this love of, or I'm going to say kind of this passion for fun into a successful business. What was that process like a little bit?
Gosh, just, a little bit of effort and a whole lot of luck. I just kind of stumbled down the path. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think anybody who's been successful is probably, if they're honest, that's at least part of it, right?
That's what I was just going to say. That's not uncommon among entrepreneurs to hear that.
But I also do like there's a quote, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but it's something like, it seems that the most successful people in the world have all the luck, and it's luck tends to follow the people who are just willing to take risk and seize opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
So I truly believe that it's not Keys On, not the first business that I had started. I'd started like 7 or 8 different, you know, home-based businesses and you know, video production companies. And it was like, I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, wanted to do my own thing.
Okay.
So I was doing that kind of thing and going to school for sound engineering and just kind of trying to find my way, you know. And right around the time of the Olympics here in Salt Lake City, about 2002, a tiny little dueling piano bar opens up. We'd never had one here before, and the guys who opened it were not piano players, didn't know anything about it, saw a show, and between the two of them went, we could do that. We could start one of those in Utah. Let's do it. You know? So they opened this piano bar. It's a pretty small establishment. They're like, well, we're taking a risk, but we've never done this before. Let's just start small, you know. And so it seated, you know, maybe 80 people max.
Okay.
Not a bad way to start.
Not a bad way to start. Yeah, smart, very smart on their part. And about 2 months after it opened, I had a friend who had started cocktailing there, and she called me up and she's like, "I've heard you play. You know, you're just as good as these guys. You need to come down here." And I kind of chuckle. I'm like, no, I've seen those shows, you know, those guys are amazing. They can play any song. You know, I know 3 Elton John songs, and that's about the extent of my repertoire. I'm nowhere near.
I'll take any request as long as it's these 3.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, but still, it's really fun. You should at least come down and see the show. So I'll definitely do that, you know. So I wander in on a dead Thursday. It's me and one other table in the room.
Okay.
And these 2 guys are up there playing and jamming tunes and stuff. And my friends are like, we're the only ones here. So they put up a request asking if I can get up and play a tune. And they're like, sure, yeah, it's a dead Thursday. Come on up, sing a song. And I played the one Elton John song I knew. I was terrified, kind of like screwed up halfway through, got lost, missed some chords, got back on track, finished the song. It was the worst rendition of the song I've ever played. I get off stage and the owner comes running across the room.
No way.
And pulls me aside. He's like, hey, you think you can do that again? And, you know,
like, yes, I can screw up again. That would be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, you know, he's like, I'm like, you know, give me a couple of weeks. He's like, no couple of weeks. I want to see you in here next Thursday. And I'm like, dude, I know like 4 songs. He's like, well, learn 20 more between now and next Thursday. Not that big a deal, right?
As if you weren't already feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
Man.
Like, it's not a big deal. Yeah, he was really great. He was an awesome recruiter, and the dude was very talented. He ends up leaving this gig and starts his own leather online company. So he's very successful. He's done 8 more businesses since now.
Wow. Okay.
He's done really well for himself. But he had a keen eye for talent and was just really good at telling me what I needed to hear, basically.
Sure.
And that was just like, you know, don't get in your own way. It's not that big a deal. You know, like, bring your sheet music, bring your books, bring whatever you got to bring. Learn 20 songs between now and next Thursday. And then, you know, the next Thursday, you'll learn 20 more. And anytime you get a request for a song you don't know, you're going to hold it up in the air and say on the microphone, hey, I got a request for this song. I don't know this song, but I know this one, and play a song that you know. That's all you got to do. Easy,
nice.
Right?
Just deflect. I like it.
Yeah. So I do that. I show up Thursday, and I play the 20 songs that I had learned. All of them were the wrong songs to learn, by the way. The crowd was not digging any of my song choices. I had no guidance. They were just like, just learn 20 songs. Okay.
Brutal.
And so I played my whole repertoire. It lasted an hour, so I had to play the whole 20 song list that I knew 3 times throughout the night to get through the night. And I was just petrified, you know. And I got done. I'm like, whoa, that was kind of a fun learning experience, but I guess, you know, that's the end of that stint. And the guy's like, hey, that was great. Fabulous job. I'll see you tomorrow.
Jeez. Wow.
And I'm like, tomorrow's a Friday night. That's a weekend show. He's like, I know. We had a bunch of piano players quit. So it's kind of you and these other 2 guys. That's it. That's what we got. So I'll see you tomorrow.
He's like, learn another 20 songs. You got till tomorrow.
I mean, years later, kind of come to find out, hearing the stories of before I got there, they had started with something like 15 piano players, and none of them really knew this gig. They were just classical piano players,
Sure.
who could kind of play and sing, but were not really good at improvising, couldn't play by ear, couldn't take requests, and just never really adapted to the job. And most of them just quit, and they just started dropping like flies. And these two guys that were remaining, and then you add me into the mix, the three of us were the only players there for like 3 or 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the fact that little bar made it was because they got so lucky finding talent in this small city, and that is the hardest part. Fast forward a little bit, I'll kind of jump places, but even now, 20 years later, the hardest part of this business is talent.
Yeah.
Finding the people that are that triple threat, that can play, that can sing, but more than anything, can MC a party, can show the audience how to have a good time. That's that kind of it factor that is really almost impossible to find, and even harder to train.
Here's the thing that's super interesting about what you're talking about, because you're talking about playing piano and you're talking about the importance of talent, and for whatever reason, the human psyche is like, oh yeah, music requires talent, but people underestimate that in all aspects of business, like the talent makes or breaks a business. I've seen guys that are amazingly talented at just answering phone calls. They're amazingly talented at, writing an email that actually resonates with the customer. They're amazingly talented at managing inventory, but we don't think of that as talent. We think of that as, oh, I don't have any talent because I don't play the piano, and
they just learned how to do their job.
Yeah. And so I love the fact that you're bringing up that you're like, look, they survived on talent. And I'm like, okay, for our listeners out there, I'm sorry that I'm jumping in and taking the teaching moment. This is like the dad moment where, son, let me share with you. But like, honestly, how important talent is in a small business. And I know we were joking around with it, you got lucky, but at the same token, there's some talent there. There's some business talent, some music talent. There's some talent there. It's the right people. I'll get off my soapbox. Sure. Keep going, man.
Yeah, no, that was a great interjection. I love it. Do it all through the interview. That was fantastic. So, and let me on too long. I'll try and move it along. Is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so I'm on with this small bar, and they're still around, by the way. It's called the Tabernacle, a little place, and they were smashing success. That first year, oh my gosh, we just blew the doors off. Every night it was a line up the street to get in.
Okay.
And it was so small, so about 2 years into it, they bought the lease of the space next door, and the stage was against the wall, and they knocked the wall down, and now we're a stage in the round. So we had a whole other side of the room that now could be seated around the pianos, and they, added 80% more occupancy, which was also a great decision, super smart.
Sure.
That's a big jump.
Yeah. I took a year off and went to Florida, got my degree in recording engineering.
Oh, nice.
So studio side of music, came back, started playing at the Tabernacle again. And so I'm there about 5 years. And from about year 4 to 5, the ownership left. The guy who had hired me had gone a couple years earlier, took out his payday and went and started another business, did his own thing.
Okay.
And then the other owner was doing really well, but he was also very successful in real estate. And this was kind of just a side fun little pet project for him. So he stopped coming in and he left it to a friend of his to kind of manage and run. And that friend of his was not the brightest bulb in the box. Let's just to say it kindly. Yeah. So with no leadership at the helm, things started to go south. And so it was like, all the wrong decisions were being made, which is like more bodies in the room equals more dollars in the till. And I kept arguing. I'm like, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You're overcrowding the place. And so now what you're doing is making it harder for your servers to serve drinks. And you're making the customer experience diminish because people are bumping into each other. People are spilling drinks on each other. The bar area, the tables in front of the bar were seated so close up next to the bar that everyone's standing at the bar, sloshing their drinks around, having a great time. We're spilling drinks down the backs of other customers who are seated at these tables. It was just, they packed them in like sardines.
Mm-hmm.
Never upgraded the air conditioning, so it would become 1,000 degrees.
Oh, just a swamp.
Yeah. Well, so it'd get really hot.
And I
would get really drunk.
Oh my gosh.
And then they'd start stepping all over each other and fights would break out.
Really?
And so we started to become that place. And just the shiny glow of that fun new piano bar started to get really diminished.
Okay.
And I watched a couple of pretty nasty bar brawls break out. And, 5 years into it, I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I'm like, and this show can be done better. It can be done classier, and not to like try and say what my vision was that was different than theirs, but people who've seen dueling piano shows, there's kind of there's like a barrel room sound that it all has.
Right.
I guess they're playing Billy Joel, Elton John, or Bon Jovi, or rock and roll, or like whatever pop music that is on the radio that they're playing. It's played by pianos, and it has this kind of oompa barrel room feel that everybody just. The rhythm is always the same, the vibe is always the same, and my argument was always like, gosh, what we could do this better. We could do this where the songs actually sounded like the original, and when I started, the requests were old school dueling piano songs. They were, Neil Diamond. They were, like I said, piano guys, Billy Joel, Elton John. But then the new kid, I'm 22 years old, 23, 24, as I'm working my way through the Tabernacle, and the requests start coming up to stuff I listened to growing up, which was 90s hip hop. Started seeing, the first rap song I learned was Baby Got Back. And started playing that on the weekends. People started to really enjoy it, And it still had that barrel room piano feel. And so I thought we need drums. We need a beat to carry these hip hop tunes. And we don't use real pianos anyway, which is kind of a, pull the mask off of what's happening.
I was going to say, did you just give away your secret sauce?
Yeah,
right?
Totally. Disclaimer, these are not real pianos. They're digital keyboards on stage. We started with real pianos at the Tabernacle. And the first year we realized that was a mistake. They had spent $10,000 on these two baby grand pianos, not realizing that none of the dueling piano bars use real pianos. They learned early that they're hard to mic. They fall out of tune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They feedback. There's just a myriad of issues. So you always just go with an empty shell that looks like a grand piano, and you slap a digital keyboard in it. And then when you break a key or something goes wrong, you just slap a new keyboard in it and go about your day.
That's beautiful.
Well, we've got these digital keyboards, and they can play any sound you want. Why, instead of two pianos playing two piano sounds, making the room muddy with a whole lot of piano, why don't we have one guy playing the piano and the other guy can be backing him up with a beat? He could be playing drums. And I floated that idea up the flagpole, and I immediately got shut down. Like, no, this is an acoustic show. There's an organic show. The other guy used to bring his electric guitar, and we shut that down because, it's just not our brand. That's not what we do.
Okay.
Like, okay, fair enough. So a couple of ideas, and then the whole guys, less is more. Stop letting so many people through the door.
Yep.
Thanks, kid. Thanks, piano player. Why don't you just keep playing the piano?
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and handle the big boy stuff.
Right.
And so about 5 years into it, I just finally had enough. And I grabbed the other two piano players and I said, what if we started our own? I'm like, if we left, do you know how hard it was for them to find talent? I'm like, if the three of us were to up and leave, who would they have?
Right.
They'd be done in a month.
Yeah.
Let's just take our show and do it somewhere else.
And do it better.
And they were both kind of on board. They were like, yeah, shoot. We don't have any money to put towards the project, but if you're going to do it, we'll come along,
Yeah.
Like, okay, great. So We started looking for a lease. Well, I did. I started looking for a lease, started writing a business plan, started kind of putting together, as much as I could. About, 5 months into it, I'm like, I've got a little space on Main Street that might work. And I've got, a couple of applications into some banks. We'll see if we can SBA loan or do something to get some financing. And we're kind of putting the ducks in a row. And the other main piano player, kind of sits me down. He's like, well, you know what we should do? We should at least offer to just buy the Tabernacle first. Then the three of us can just own it. We can make all these decisions. We don't have to start from scratch and start our own. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. That would be the easier solution. So took the owner to dinner and I said, we want to buy the Tabernacle. We're tired of you not being here ever. And all of the writings on the wall that it feels like it's sliding downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've ever thought about selling, but, I have a lot of ideas. And, at this point I'm 25, 26, and I'm either playing for tips or I got to go do something else with the rest of my life. I'm like, right. I'm either going to get into this business for real and be a part of the business side of it, or I got to go do something else. I can't be a piano player cranking out, tunes for the peeps on the weekend as a career. I'm,
at some point that's not cool anymore.
We've got our first child on the way, and I got to put my big boy pants on and becoming a grown up here at some point. So either you'll let me in, and you can sell it to me, or just so you know, if you don't, I'm probably going to start another one because, like I said, I got a lot of really good ideas, and I think that, this could be my career path for me. So I got to take my shot.
Okay.
And he took me very seriously. He's like, everything's for sale. So let me think of a number. I said, okay, great. So he took about a week and he calls me up. He says, listen, I tried to think of a number that would work for you that I'd be willing to sell it for. And I want you to know, I really did think about it, but I couldn't come up with that number. There's no number that I would be willing to let it go for that you'd be willing to buy it for. It would be a silly investment for you to spend that much. He's like, but that's what I'd need to get out of it. So thanks, but good luck, but no.
So he didn't even give you a number?
No.
What?
It was just like, I couldn't think of a number that made realistic sense.
Oh my gosh.
So,
well, yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, man. Of course you're not going to pay it because you don't even know. Dude.
Yeah. So, and I think, to be honest, he was just calling my bluff. Sure. It was just like, he's 26, 27. I can't remember how old I was when I had the conversation. I think it was 26. And he's just like, who is this guy? He's not going to start a competing dueling piano player.
Yeah, right?
He's just not.
Well, especially when they didn't.
That was a fair bet.
Yeah, especially when they didn't think that any of your ideas were that great anyway. It's like, we don't believe in him anyway. We're not going to believe that he can actually do this.
Right.
That's
and,
insane.
It's like, listen, I'm making a lot of money doing this. I really don't think you're going to go start another one. So I appreciate the moxie to make this offer, but the answer is no.
Uh-huh. Well, and that's something that we look at often with businesses that we work with is these entrepreneurs or small business owners that have been in the game for a while. They forget to keep their finger on the pulse of the market. They keep forgetting to check in with their customer base and see what's going on, right? They just see the money coming in and they think, man, I've got this dialed in, and they just are going to ride that train. Well, if they're not watching where the train is going, right, where the track is leading, and they're just, full force going ahead, as soon as that track starts to turn, they're going right off the embankment. You know what I mean? They're not going to survive. They're not going to last. We see that all the time. It's such an unfortunate mistake to just let things go like that because of your own ignorance as a business owner. It's like, you got to humble yourself and take a look at what really is going on and make decisions based on what your market is telling you. And I think that's really what you were doing here. You kind of saw this uprising, this new age of, that was diverting from what was, from all these old classics and acoustic pianos to this new, fun, little bit faster paced music with a beat. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it's like I said, I didn't reinvent the wheel, certainly. But it was like, this is the old man's dueling piano bar.
Right.
You know, what do the guys my age want to see? And I'm like,
exactly.
it needed to be less of the local watering hole and more of a nightclub. I wanted it to feel energetic, like a dance club.
Yeah. Well, and my guess would be, and correct me if you think I'm wrong. As you've been talking about this, I've kind of had this sense of there's an element of supply and demand going on here. When you were first in the business, or first playing the piano and whatnot, and it first opened, and there was this whole first year was just insane, right? It's like all of a sudden there's this huge demand, or there's this demand for something new. Well, all of a sudden there's this one bit of supply that comes in, and just the demand rushes to it. And so you're making bank, you're having a lot of fun, you're filling seats and doing that every night. Well, if that kind of corrodes into, well, we're doing this the same old way always and forever, then you're going to see that, like you said, start to slip. And then you come along with this, it's again, yeah, like you said, it's not reinventing the wheel, but you come along with following the trend of the market. And all of a sudden because the demand is building and building and building at that point where this supply has changed into, well, it's not really our supply anymore because it's not really what we want. So that demand is growing. Well, then you come in with that new supply and it's like, yes, that's what we want. That's what we're going after. And I think taking advantage of that, it's not luck. And like you said, again, it's not reinventing the wheel, but it's smart business. Like that was incredibly astute on your part to take advantage of that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, looking back, the cautious, middle-aged man in me now goes, man, you were absolutely insane. Yeah. But I just remember, at 26, what did I have to lose?
Exactly.
Sure.
I hadn't built up any kind of wealth or capital. I bought my first house, but it had no equity in it. And it was just like, you take your shot, and if it didn't fail, you file for bankruptcy and you pick up the pieces and start again. I had plenty of time to rebuild.
Yeah.
And I knew that. So I just thought, now's the time, take your shot.
Very good.
So we went out. Oh, and to your point of, businesses who just keep, doing the same old thing. And that's what they do. We have a saying in the office, which is, once you think you're done, you are.
Oh, man, that hit me so hard. I love that.
We repeat that every month or two in the office when we're talking about, okay, what's the new promotion? What's the new fresh thing? What's the new event? What's something different we can do? What are the customers requesting? What do we need to see happen? What more can we do to boost this holiday? What more can we do? We're always constantly trying new things and trying to refresh our own show, because that's what we constantly repeat. Once you think you're done, you are.
That is beautiful.
Now your show and your location became quite a success. I mean, by the time that I was introduced to your club, it's a very prominent club. Gets a lot of people. That's where they want to go. Your reputation, it extends pretty far. I mean, you've even been able to branch outside of. So you started in Salt Lake City. You opened up 3 additional locations, 4 in total, and so like you've had a good bit of success. And I know you're going to be modest and be like, well, we were lucky, blah, blah, blah. But honestly, you've been very successful as an entrepreneur.
Yes. I think that's an accurate statement.
So
I mean, whether the cause was by my own genius or dumb luck, the result was the same. I have built my life savings and my kids' college funds, and everything that I have, I owe to, some good decisions early on, and the success that these piano bars have brought to me. So I'm very proud of it. I shouldn't downplay it. No, it was.
Yeah, you should be absolutely incredibly proud of it. It's massive.
But now, okay, this is what I want to talk about for a minute if we can. So your club requires people coming in. The term social distancing is that's a swear word in your club because people want to get together, they want to socialize, and so all of a sudden this pandemic breaks out, and it put a lot of strain on your businesses, a lot of strain. How? Like, first off, just give us an overview of, I mean, kind of what does that look like for you as an entrepreneur, and what were some of the things that you did that other entrepreneurs, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are struggling right now. There's also entrepreneurs who are overly cautious to launch in. I mean, at the time when you took your shot, there wasn't a reason to think, this is really stupid because, everything's up in commotion. I don't know what to expect. There's a lot more uncertainty in the world and in the markets today. So, talk a little bit about what was the impact that this had on your business, and what are some of the things that, maybe you did right or maybe you did wrong that others can learn from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll just say that, when we first opened Salt Lake, pre-2008 crash, so money was just being given away. I mean, I will say that 20 bank applications, only one approved us. So we did just barely get our SBA loan by the skin of our teeth.
Okay.
But we got that approval. No one would have approved me if I had tried this even a year later.
Okay.
And from that point on, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Keys on Main exists if I didn't apply for this in the time when money was just being handed out like candy on the bubble of the housing crisis. Banks just had more money than they could do anything with it. So in that regard, we did get a little bit lucky that we got the financing together. But we opened and immediately successful. Line up Main Street every weekend from the day we opened, which is just crazy. I look back and it's just like, wow, that was amazing. Good timing, good promoting, good advertising.
I am going to state this, that and we always talk about overnight successes usually take about 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And so when you say that, you had a line from day one, well, you just told us that you had spent the last year or two basically testing your market, finding out what your market wanted. And so when you opened, it wasn't like this was day one. This was more like day 800 in your mind, day one on in your new location.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah. So open the doors, smashing success, great. Come that spring, we've been open 4 or 5 months, and the bubble bursts.
Yep.
And the market tanks.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this going into business, but bars are seasonal. Bars are busy in the wintertime. Bars are not busy in the summertime. I had no idea.
Brutal.
I had no idea.
Your competition became the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The sunshine.
Yep. Yeah, the home barbecue, everything else to do outside, but the indoors at somebody's bar. So, it got lean there for that first summer. But because of that first 3-4 months worth of success after we first opened, I didn't spend any of it. I knew that there was going to be something, It was like I lived well beneath my means. We had our little house in West Jordan. My bills were easy to maintain. And so just sat on a stockpile of money and, literally paid in July of 2008, paid $6,000 that month to have the luxury of owning a piano bar. And I have a journal and I have little entries that are just like, well, we'll see if it doesn't start to turn around in the next 3 or 4 months. That's the end of this story, But Slowly it did turn around, and school came back in. And that next year, as we rode out into the fall and into winter, and had the best year so far, and that following winter beat that opening winter, and from that point on, we never had another negative month.
Nice.
But that first month, right after the economy tanked, was pretty scary.
Sure.
But at the same time, to your point of now, as people are trying to think about, do I open a business right now when there's a struggling economy and a pandemic out there? Back then, 2008, the timing was actually perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We secured our funding, and we kind of there were a couple of bars that shut down because of, that struggle that summer.
Sure.
We made it through, and so did a couple of others. And so in a small city like Salt Lake, we were the ones left standing. And that was huge for the next couple of years. The ones who made bread in that time, in that slowdown, were the ones who came out on top on the other side of it. But at the same time, certainly be prudent. I think now is a great time. If you can, I think commercial real estate's about to go through a really tough time.
Everything's on discount, but is it
COVID
there for a
has
reason?
taught us that so many of these jobs can be done from home or remotely. And I think a lot of that will come back, but I think a lot of it won't. And so real estate, commercial real estate had been on a pretty decent sized boom. I think it's about to have a little bit of a correction. I don't think it'll, disappear or go to zero by any stretch, but the big exorbitant lease rates and the big expensive buildings, I think, if you're looking to start a retail location, you could get in now. And I think that entertainment is the only reason to have a real physical location anymore. So for my type of business,
that's interesting.
Yeah. If you're selling T-shirts, don't have a physical location. What are you doing?
Right,
That's not the way the world works anymore.
Yeah.
Keep your overhead down. Don't be buying a lease on Main Street. You don't need that. But if you have a great restaurant idea or a nightclub or a bar of some kind, if you have a unique idea, I think that's the key. It's got to be something different than everybody else is doing,
mm-hmm.
even if the source of revenue is the same.
Yep.
I make my money the same way everybody else does. I sell alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a margin over what I buy and what I sell alcohol for, and that's it. It's not rocket science. It's just pianos and liquor.
Yeah.
But what we actually sell is an experience.
Right.
So the user experience is crucial. So, back to the whole COVID thing. Yeah, it's really put a dent in our business for sure. If it doesn't come back, if we're not able to go back to people don't have to stand 6 feet apart, can we innovate quickly enough to solve that? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. We still make our money based on people showing up and drinking alcohol. And so to kind of put it in perspective, the two clubs in Washington's restrictions have been tighter than Salt Lake City. So those two nightclubs haven't even reopened at all since March. They have been completely dark since March 16th. Salt Lake, little less strict. We've been allowed to reopen, but we have to have 6 feet between every table and no standing room, no bar service. And that was the bulk of our occupancy. We had 250 chairs, but we would house another 250 people standing at the bar. So we went from 400 to 500 people on a weekend night to 100.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
that's
So it's
wow.
It's been tough. Yeah, we're operating at about 30% of our typical sales volume.
Well, and it's interesting because you mentioned that when you first opened, you had the foresight to recognize that you needed some cash reserves. And, I'm confident that you've carried that thought process into this current pandemic. And the interesting thing is, like, businesses, they always have their ups and their downs. And, I just wish that more entrepreneurs that, that we worked with would realize that, there's a time to reap, there's a time to sow, and there's a winter when nothing happens, and that those seasons are going to be different for every business, but they definitely still come and go, and so I can see that, and but to your point on the entertainment,
it was a source of contention. I had a partner in the Washington locations.
Okay.
For many years, I don't have that partner anymore, but for the first 7 years of those 2 locations, I had this partner, and he and I would, it was the only thing that we really fought about pretty hard, which is he's younger than me, and he's been given this partnership. I basically made him a partner because you need boots on the ground.
Sure.
I need to know that someone up there, since I don't live in Washington, has a vested interest in the success of these clubs.
Uh-huh.
So it was a partnership that was mostly like an employee with profit sharing as part of his salary.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he didn't have the final say. I always had the final say. They were definitely my businesses, but the club did well. He did very well.
Mm-hmm.
And we would fight a lot because he'd want to take an owner's draw. He's like, we have all this money sitting here, and I would like to do something with it. I'd like to do this for my family, or go on this vacation. Like, what are we doing sitting on all this money? And I just, it would just crack me up. I'm just like, what happens tomorrow if, the fire department comes in, says, oh, you've done this wrong, and we get shut down for 2 months and have to fix something. Not only do we have to pay for the repairs, but we've got, we've lost revenue for 2 months. Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? We absolutely have to have this money in the bank in case of a rainy day.
Yeah.
You don't spend everything that you earned. Has nobody taught you this lesson?
Yeah. Well, and you
Ridiculous.
see that time and time again, that entrepreneurs who don't have a solid grasp on their finances or solid budgeting practices, or solid grasp of these financial principles, they'll fail just because of basic things like that, right? Yeah. It's not anything groundbreaking that just undermines them. It's like you totally could have avoided that so easy.
Absolutely. And this is why most bars fail.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's stats on it, and I couldn't give you realistic stats. I'd be pulling them out of my rear end, but, bars have the highest failure rate, second to restaurants. Every new bar that opens is likely going to fail.
Uh-huh.
And it's typically because the owners are pulling all the profits. It's just a cash cow, and they suck it dry every single month.
Yeah.
Most bars, I know from my beer deliveries, my drivers are always just like, yeah, almost every club out there is a cash account. I don't drop beer unless they have cash for me, because they can't be trusted to be put on credit.
Jeez.
Oh, what does that tell you?
So they suck all the profits out, and typically they're their own best customers, which is always
the other
a bad thing. Don't get into the bar business if you think it's going to be a party. It's not.
Man.
Oh, that's wonderful. Hey, so we're gonna kind of wrap this up, and oh my gosh, there's so much that we could still talk about.
I have loved this interview.
Yeah.
This has seriously been one of my favorites, hands down.
I'm sorry, it's long-winded. I know you said
no, it's great.
We're going on way too long.
But the thing is like you just kept tucking in gem after gem, and you're like, hey, do this in your business, do this in your business, do this in your business, and if our listeners really paid attention, there were a solid half a dozen key principles
at least
that were just thrown out there, like, oh yeah, that's a good point, oh yeah, that's a good point, pay attention to that, look into that more, so fabulous content. But I am going to ask you to kind of summarize any final thoughts that you have, any takeaways that we've got a lot of other entrepreneurs at all levels listening to this show. What are some final takeaways that you just think would be good for someone who maybe hasn't gone through the same experiences that you have?
Sure. Gosh, I mean, there's a million, but I think what I could attribute my successes to is, education. And that doesn't have to be a university education. I certainly don't have one. There are plenty of books out there to be read, but you should know the ins and outs of business, know the ins and outs of tax laws, know the ins and outs of writing a business plan. Like, learn and educate yourself on business first before you step into the waters. Mm-hmm. Know about proper money management before you step into the waters. There's just basic good accounting principles for those cash reserve arguments that I had with my partner in Washington. I'm like, I didn't pull these numbers out of nowhere. This is like standard business practice to have this much in cash reserves based on your sales volume. I'm like, these are numbers that I read from somewhere. I learned this. I didn't just come up with it on my own. So educate yourself, and then honestly, just take the shot. Most people don't succeed because they just don't do anything. They have a great idea, or they have something that they've dreamed about or envisioned to do forever, and they just dream about it until their shot's gone, until the opportunity is now missed. It's like you said earlier, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take the shot. You might fail, but you might not.
Wow.
That's just it. My grandpa owned a local bank for years and years, and if you need to cut this out of the podcast, it's totally fine with me. But
it's not
people would ask him all the time, what made you so successful, and what in the world made you think to start a bank out here in farm country in Utah back in the 70s?
Uh-huh.
He would just shrug his shoulders. You know what? I don't know. I guess I got more balls than brains.
Yeah.
That's always stuck with me. It's really true. I think a lot of people are smart enough, capable enough, but you just have to go out and take a shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Amen.
Hey, this has been a fabulous time. We have thoroughly enjoyed talking with you, hearing your story, hearing your experience, and that's awesome. So for those who are in the area, Keys on Main, you've got it there. I guess the one to go to right now is going to be the flagship there in Salt Lake City, Utah. If you ever get a chance, check it out. And, shameless plug on our end, you talked about the importance of education. That's what we try to do, is we educate those entrepreneurs, those small businesses. So if you want to see a full list of all of our trainings, including financial management trainings, you can check it out on tabletwise.com. Just search Marketing, Management, and Money. I'm your host, Ryan Murray.
And I'm Ryan Owens.
And to George, we say thank you, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.